So I first did a survey at this property 4 years ago. It has improved, but not as much as I would like. And the main reason is the render. The cracks have reappeared and they always will do. Have a listen to the survey. So just to be clear, the main problem you have here is the render, and you'll see this is the only property in this section of the street with render. None of the others of this period have render, and what you're getting is render cracks. And I'm going to show you some pictures during a rainstorm, but you'll get water running down here, it'll get sucked in. Of water's flowing down, and you see it's dry here. That's because it's going inside there and inside the property. You'll also get a certain amount around here. If you want to get rid of the problem long term, it's best to remove the render or think about EWI, which is external wall insulation. Part of the reason that the render cracks appear, and it looks like they've been filled at some stage, should be filled with caulk, but the problem is that they are going to come back again. They're expansion cracks, they're expansion contraction, and also the interesting thing here is you've got hygroscopic salts. We'll talk more about that if you have some internally, but those are hygroscopic salts, normally from chimneys, but also can come from animal excrement, shall we say. The property has been damp proofed, you see that? It's a sign of past damp proofing, which normally there, because hygroscopic salts are being mistaken for rising damp, which it isn't in the majority of cases, in fact virtually never. So this is from my original survey. I recommended instructing a builder to rake out and fill render cracks and repaint flaking masonry paint, etc. £3,000 for the external render, and then a further up to 10,000 for the insulation. It was 2001, so the costs will have gone up by then because of COVID and so on, and general inflation. I stand by everything that I said in the original survey. I think most of it needs to be redone, and consider taking off the render or putting EWI wall insulation, and increase the ventilation and extractor and dehumidification. Here's the survey with the tenant, and you can skip forward to the end if you want to see the data loggers and have a look at the chapters below. I'll check it to see whether it's dry, but that's an old leak from the bathroom that what a plumber fixed it, did it?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, I think
good.
so.
So we're getting a bit of mould forming around there. So there's obviously a vapour issue as well, and obviously clothes are being dried internally.
Yeah, we've been seeing it on sort of the windowsills and stuff. Yeah, we often put clothes over there to dry.
Do you have a dehumidifier?
I have one in
Your bedroom.
Yeah.
You want to, if you ever dry clothes internally, you want to have a 20 litre plus dehumidifier running next to them, because otherwise the vapour will just find its way to the cold wall. But you've got more than condensation here. You've got penetrating damp. You can tell that because of the brown stains. So just to say, the kitchen extractor fan hadn't been replaced. It was originally running at 3.5 litres a second. It should run at 30 litres a second to be effective. But the only thing about kitchen extractor fans is that tenants don't generally use them. And when it's open plan, it means that any vapour from cooking will flow into the rest of the property. So I'm just going to move these things away from the wall, but you can see this is the primary issue. You can see the damp proofing course up to there. And
actually also on this, under the books behind those little canisters on the top shelf. Oh, sorry, in the middle there. There's some damp there too. Sorry, in here, which just started. Yeah, this is new. We think.
Well, yeah. So okay, it's going to be a combination of factors, but condensation is going to be an issue. Do you know about the neighbours? Are they in? They live there, or?
Yeah, both sides are inhabited.
Occupied. Yeah. What you want to do? I know. You're in part. You're trying to hide the problem, but stopping the airflow increases the risk that condensation is going to cause issues on that wall. So this is just a simple damp meter that I encourage anyone to get. Putting it onto masonry mode, and it's showing damp from about 1.3 meters. And this is obviously very damp, but this is penetrating damp here. Actually, I would say that it's largely the slurry is blocking the penetrating damp, and it's primarily condensation forming on the slurry. It's the slurry, or the damp proof of slurry, is making it colder, increasing the risk of condensation. It's all made worse by the penetrating, or the render cracks on the outside. Let's have a look over here. Yeah, it continues over here as well. Yeah. So that's the damp proof of slurry. And it gets damp just at that point. It's because water gets trapped in behind vapour. I'm just moving the sofa away from the wall to increase the airflow from the radiator, be more effective, and this object as well. Ideally those should be, but let's not worry too much about that for now. Mould has been cleaned away. I'm going to put this on. You can see. So we're now looking in the bathroom on the first floor. I'm using a damp meter to test for dryness or dampness in the wall. There are clearly condensation marks. The extractor fan is considerably better than it was. It has been replaced, and actually it needed a bit of attention, but it's now working reasonably well. So that will do. I'll have a look at it. Showing 4.7 meters. See what it's like. So 4.7 was just the background. I've switched the lights on and it's getting faster. So we'll give it another minute or so. Inaccurately. So 6.6. I'll try it outside. I've taken this cover off. It was a bit dirty and there's obviously lots of spiders' webs, so I'm going to get rid of those. Simple. Give it a nice clean up. Get rid of dirt. It's not bad, and I'm probably not collecting all of it because some of it will be coming through the edges. Ideally, it should show 15 litres a second. 12.6 is good though. So this is, somebody's used a damp meter here. I prefer these because they don't leave scars. And there's dampness there, gets dry. So I like to think of them more as dry meters. And that's negatively dry there, if you like. When you've got a stain like that, it's normally a sign of penetrating damp, and in fact it's showing 100%. It's coming around here, but it's penetrating all the way through. If we look through the window, we'll probably see a crack immediately outside. So this in line, I'd say the crack would be about here. So this is a filter. I would actually recommend those dehumidifiers are way too small. I mean, virtually a waste of time. So more penetrating damp there. And let's once again look outside. Property has a butterfly roof or London roof, and there's often a zone of dampness here. In this case, not. Because there's poor insulation. Also, there's obviously a risk of a leak, but it's often condensation you get below these this section because it's poorly insulated, but it seems to be fine here. So that's a positive. It's always nice to have a positive. We're looking at the render from the outside, and you see this vertical crack will let water in, but not to the extent that a horizontal crack will do. Oh look, the plant growth there. So that's been repaired, I think, and this whole area's been painted, but there's a crack up there, and I mean, it's going to be ongoing until you remove it. And since no one else has render, I would have thought that's the ideal thing to do, or put in external wall insulation, EWI. So the plant is growing here because it can get moisture, and it's because water gets into this brick and is absorbed in all directions and gets trapped by the render. The problem's the render, not the brick. Likewise, it gets in through the crack and absorbs inside, and even if it doesn't always come all the way through, it can cause heat loss, which reduces the insulating capacity of the wall. So probably better to either remove it or to you can fill the gaps and cracks, but they only last a few years. I'll look at the drain. It's an extractor fan and it's open plan, and you have dry and close internally. You need a good dehumidifier to remove the vapour from that. The bathroom extractor fan I've improved, but keep the bathroom door closed. So an element is condensation, an element is penetrating damp. There's only so much you guys can do about the penetrating damp, but you can do, you know, a certain amount about the condensation. And I'm going to the kitchen logger. I'm just putting in there by the entrance. It'll give us a sense of how much vapour has been generated from cooking. By the way, if you cook with tops on pots and pans, you can turn the heat down, reduce the energy consumption, and it cooks just as quickly, and you reduce vapour produced by about 80%. So it's a good tip. Signs of condensation dribble marks there, and a bit of mould at the base. Nothing really major, but I think there's some mouldish around here. These passive vents aren't particularly good. Personally, I would just cover them up and deal with the root cause of the vapour, which is using an extractor fan. So going outside, you've got a bit of render cracking there. Oh, so you've got the duct for the extractor fan, just not the data logger up against the damp wall. I'm keeping the sensor away from the wall. You can have it either way, but you can see the condensation down there. But I prefer it that way in this case anyway. Looking outside, we can see quite a few issues. It's not in great order. A lot of these won't cause internal dampness, but you just don't know. And the problem is sometimes that cracks are painted over with permeable or semi-permeable paint, allowing moisture to be absorbed through. If it were my place, I would consider EWI or removing the render. Talking about mould, and I was just discussing that while I'm not a doctor, by and large, the issue with mould is not the mould itself, but the humidity that's causing the mould that encourages, that causes dust mites to proliferate, to colonise, and to cause allergies. So in this environment where you don't have carpets, but you do have curtains and bedclothes, but anyway, you don't have carpets, so that means that it's not as big an issue. But if you did have carpets, you'd vacuum clean them. With bedclothes, it's worth turning them regularly. I mean, like duvets, turn them down, pillows, turn them daily, that sort of thing. But you're not getting a lot of mould and condensation in the bedroom area, so it's less of a concern. At least I can't see many signs. What you have upstairs is primarily penetrating damp. You can tell that by the staining. What that leads to is then colder bricks that lose heat, that cause increased surface relative humidity, which leads to condensation and mould. But but anyway, that's a separate thing. Downstairs, you're getting mould and condensation. I would say, if I were to guess, there's mainly the kitchen and drying clothes down here. The bathroom upstairs has a fan. I improved it, but it still seemed to be okay. It's a continuous flow fan. Just want to make sure that the door's closed. So I'm going to ask you to do three things. You always use a dehumidifier whenever drying clothes internally. Did you say you've got one?
There's a tiny one that we have.
Oh, they're too small.
Around a bit, but
they're way too small. You need to have a 20 litre one. So,
could we recommend that's provided to us?
Yeah. Second one is to close the bathroom door, and the third one is cook with tops on pots and pans and turn the heat down so it's still simmering, still cooking, but it will reduce the amount of vapour by 80% from cooking. The other thing is that you have to recognise when working from home that you are increasing the vapour load, which is fine, but it needs corresponding ventilation as well. So these windows don't seem to have trickle vents on them, but you can just crack them open slightly, just very slightly crack it open, and it will. Oh, I can't do it single-handedly, but.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky that one. Don't worry.
But yeah, just have a little bit of airflow. It's good for everyone. You want to keep the internal dew point below the external temperature by looking at the data loggers. Good for analysing data from the data loggers. It's using damp.ai/detect, and all you need to do is upload your logs. You can do that anytime you want to. You have to obviously download them off from the data loggers onto your phone and then upload them. It does work in mobile phones as well, but you can see it more easily on a computer screen. So you choose the log where the next to the damp wall and the log next to the vapor source. So this is set up for London, but you can use any city, or you can use your own files for external. Calibration was done at the time of the survey. That's using water and salt. So the temperature of the damp wall at the time of the survey was 9.7 at its coldest point. And that was on the 16th at 2 p.m. So we can see immediately that this green line here is the surface relative humidity. If you put the mouse up against it, it will show you the actual level, and that's 100% for that period. So that was on the 21st or 20th, I think. You can sort of zoom in and find it and think about what was happening at the time. But this tells me a number of factors. So there are three things to really look at: the surface relative humidity, and you hit the condensation point. So you had 100% condensation in that coldest zone. And then the rest of the time you had a high risk of mould. This red line here is, so the second thing I want you to look at is this blue line, the dew point, and it's the dew point of the data logger near to the wet wall. Now, the interesting thing here is the third thing to look at, and that's the dew point differential. And this is actually lower, although it's in the same room. It's in the kitchen, and your damp wall was in the same open plan room, essentially. This dew point differential tells me that there's more vapor coming from the vapor source than the damp wall. Well, so a certain amount will be coming from the kitchen and drying clothes, but I think what the issue here is that the vapor has been taken out of the air by the damp wall because it's condensing. So condensing removes vapor, so you reduce the dew point. So the dew point is a measure of the amount of vapor in air, and you want to keep that below the outside temperature at all times, which you do briefly here, and then these other times. It's not going to be possible to do it the whole time, but to follow Dew's law, you want to keep. So Dew's law shows compliance of only 4% of the time. So you want to be doing it maybe 95% of the time by using the dehumidifier, extractor fan, cooking with tops on pots and pans, cracking open the window if the room feels humid, and also keep the bathroom door closed. Those are the primary things to do. And you will not only feel warmer, so humid air feels cold in winter. The corollary is dry air feels warmer than cold air. So you can reduce your heating consumption and your greenhouse emissions. Also, condensation causes heat loss. So the wall to the front, admittedly, you're getting some dampness from penetrating damp, which isn't helping, but also you're getting condensation. And both of those are causing heat loss to the front wall. increasing the risk of condensation. So it's win-win if you bring down the vapor levels to below this red line here. I do appreciate you are going to get some water coming through from the damaged render to the front, but it's going to be relatively minimal compared to other sources such as occupiers, cooking kitchen and drying clothes. So anyway, good luck and try this yourselves.